Hi, in this video I'm going to explain how to write the first two body paragraphs with comments and notes and explanation. But because they're basically the same, I'm only going to give you one example, and that is the first body paragraph. So let's start. Well, the first body paragraph is what is the solution? What are its disadvantages and advantages? How it works. So this is basically it. You're not going to add any other information. You're basically going to explain it plainly and with quotations taken from the BUE's online resources. So, as any other body paragraph, we start with a topic sentence in which we say which treatment we're going to discuss. So, here, if you're discussing medication, so medication is going to be the first sentence. You need to mention that medication is considered as the first treatment or a treatment of the disease. After that, you need to explain how it works. And I mean that you are going to think about it as if you're explaining this information to someone with no medical background. So they need to understand how medication works, how the therapy works. So you need to explain how this treatment works using two things. Number one, you're going to use citation or a quotation from the British UE's online from the British University's online database, and you can also use external resources combined. In other words, not just external sources, but also BUE's online database sources. After that, you're going to mention its advantages and disadvantages. Once more, you are going to go to the British University, get the quotations that support the advantages and disadvantages. Some treatments have only one and one, like one advantage and one disadvantage, two and two. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter the number of advantages and disadvantages. You're simply explaining the solution. I wouldn't say briefly because it's a 1,200 words. I wouldn't say briefly. Nevertheless, just make sure that the explanation is sufficient and enough. And as we end any body paragraph, we usually end with, or we always end with a concluding sentence in which you sum up the content. So it's more of a combination between the topic sentence and the advantages and disadvantages. Now let's go to the example and the comments. Now here I'm going to continue talking about coronavirus, and I'm going to talk about medication as one of its treatments. Nevertheless, as you all know, that coronavirus doesn't have a specified or a verified, an FDA approved or WHO approved medication yet. This is why I use the word medication. Nevertheless, the diseases that you've already discussed, they have already established medications that have been used or treatments that have been used. So make sure that you don't use an unorthodox way that is not proven. Make sure that you use something that is proven. So here I started my sentence saying that medication, the treatment, is accepted as a treatment of coronavirus in the United States affecting the elderly. So here I've simply mentioned the solution, I've mentioned the disease, the country, the people, and the century again. Later on, the next step is basically explaining how it works, and because this is not my own explanation, I am going to have a citation or a quotation. Searching the BUE's online database, I found a doctor called John. This is the last name, of course, and I've noticed that this explanation suits the medication. So I've decided to paraphrase what he said, and I started with a keyword or a linking word or a transitional word is called in the words of or in the opinion of. So this time you are going to start with one of these keywords because these show clarity. I've noticed that in the first essay I was a bit confused, like to who said what. So please bear in mind that you are going to use the linking word at the beginning and keep the way that we use of like last name and the year between brackets. Can we skip it? Or at least as much as we can we skip it as much as we can? Because it was really ambiguous for me. So this time I want you to be clear in the use of transitions, like in the words of, according to, in the opinion of, and the year between brackets. Some of you wrote the year not between brackets or preceded by in, and some of you forgot about the comma. The comma is important. This is punctuation. You have to pay attention to this. Now, because now I have another point, and that is I'm moving on to the advantages. So I've quoted someone else, and this is Dr. Brad. But again, I said the last name and the year between brackets, and then I said stated, and then I explained that these are the advantages that he mentioned. These are not my advantages, these are basically his advantages, or the advantages according to his point of view. The main reason I selected 2 is because I'm going to favor medication over my other treatment. So this is why I'm highlighting the advantages. You could do the same. You can simply say it has 1 advantage, 3 advantage, totally up to you. Just make sure that you have enough advantages in the persuasion paragraph, and that is paragraph number 3. Now, as you can see here, these are the advantages. Moving on, we have some disadvantages, and because the same source also had disadvantages, I decided to use the same author. Nevertheless, I highlighted using on the other hand that this is a different point of view, or this is a contradiction, and I also said the author referring to Brad. So here I'm trying as much as I can to link these 2 pieces of information, the advantages and disadvantages, saying that it's only one source. We always end with a concluding sentence, and concluding sentences need a transitional word as well, like consequently, and then you sum up everything that you said. It looks a bit like the topic sentence. You can here add briefly like it has advantages and disadvantages, or you can leave it as it is, totally up to you. Now, as you can see here, now this body paragraph is really short, is really lacking elaboration and analysis, and this is what you're expected to do. You can explain the meaning of availability and control. You can explain what you mean by this disadvantage. So in order to make sure that you reach the 1200, I want it to be as talkative as much as you can. Write as much information here as much as you can in this body paragraph and the upcoming 2 body paragraphs. So these 3 body paragraphs are about elaboration and analysis. Otherwise, it will be like you're largely describing the disease, the treatments. You're not going to simply describe, you're also going to analyze, you're going to persuade. Make sure that you have sufficient information. If you have any questions, make sure that you ask me. I'm available all the time. Thank you.